Well, now let's get you some updates on the domestic front. Well, the central government has raised LPG cylinder prices for both subsidized and non-subsidized categories by 50 rupees per cylinder. Starting today, domestic LPG cylinders will cost 550 rupees for Ujjwala beneficiaries and 853 for non-Ujjwala beneficiaries. Now, meanwhile, the centre has also increased special additional excise duty on petrol and diesel by 2 rupees per litre. However, the government has clarified that duty on petrol and diesel will not be passed on to customers. Listen in to Union Oil Minister Hardeep Puri on this.
Average price, not the average, the price per cylinder of LPG will increase by 50 rupees. In other words, from 500 it will go up to 550 and the other one will go up from 803 to 853. Now this is a step which we will review as we go along. As it is, we review these every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And therefore the excise duty that you have seen increase is not to go on to the consumer on petrol and diesel. As I kept telling you, that excise increase is intended to compensate the oil marketing companies for the 43,000 crore that they have incurred as a loss on the gas part of it.
Aradhan, there you have it. That's the word coming in from the oil minister as well. Let's move on. Let's get Prakash on board, joining us with more details. Prakash, why has the government increased the central excise duty? In fact, help us with a few more details there.
The hike in central excise duty on petrol and diesel will essentially take excise duty on petrol to rupees 13 per litre and diesel to rupees 10 per litre. That's an important development coming in as the government has decided to increase central excise duty on petrol and diesel by rupees 2 per litre, despite the fact that crude oil prices are hovering around 60 per dollar in the international market. And there were some expectations the oil marketing companies will provide some sort of relief to the consumers in terms of reduction in petrol diesel prices. But the government has decided to increase central excise duty on petrol and diesel. But it has made it very clear that the burden will not be passed on to the consumer. In fact, the burden of hike in central excise duty on petrol and diesel will have to be borne by the oil marketing companies. Along with that, the government will collect roughly around rupees 32,000 crore by this season, and the amount will be utilized to compensate oil marketing companies to cover their losses they are facing on sale of domestic LPG, which is roughly around rupees 41,000 crore. In addition to that, the Petroleum Ministry has also decided to increase prices of domestic LPG by rupees 50 per cylinder, and that will be applicable for Ujjwala and non-Ujjwala customers both. As you are aware, that the oil marketing companies have been requesting government to compensate them to cover their losses they are facing due to a sale of domestic LPG below market price. Now, interestingly, government has come out with some sort of formula where the government has decided to impose central excise duty on petrol and diesel being sold by the same companies to compensate.
Well, that's as far as the LPG prices are concerned. Now, Prakash, when do you expect consumer to get respite in terms of petrol and diesel price reduction? Now, we understand that customers will not be burdened with the increased prices and that OMCs will have to bear the cost. But how does it impact the margins of OMCs?
Yeah, that's the fact that the consumers will not be burdened by the government decision to increase central excise duty on petrol and diesel. In fact, the Petroleum Minister has made it very clear that the consumers will not be burdened. The oil marketing companies will have to bear the cost of hike in central excise duty on petrol and diesel, and therefore retail prices will remain unchanged. But the big question is that if the crude prices are hovering around $6 per barrel in the international market, when the benefit of reduction in crude prices will be passed on to the consumers. The oil minister has maintained that the oil marketing companies are maintaining inventory 45 days crude inventory with the average cost of $75 per barrel. And if crude prices remain range bound in $60 to $68 per barrel, then there will be possibility to decrease prices going forward. Along with that, the Petroleum Ministry has also maintained that the high probability that the prices will remain range bound. there is ample supply in the market. New suppliers have been added to the list, and therefore there is no shortage of crude in the market, and there's high probability that the prices will remain range bound, and oil marketing companies will reduce petrol diesel prices going forward.
Well, absolutely, Prakash, and that's exactly what Oil Minister also had to say, because he said that hike in excise duty on petrol and diesel is not going to be affecting consumers. That's the word coming in from him. Let's also go across and listen into what were the exact words. What did he exactly say when it comes to the excise duty?
Look, international price of petrol came down to around $60 a barrel. $60 of crude per barrel in the last day or so. But please remember that our oil marketing companies, with whose work I'm more familiar, but even the private sector companies, they carry inventories over a 45-day period. And if you go back to, say, early January, the crude price then was $83, which came down subsequently to $75. So the crude inventory that they're carrying is at $75 on an average per barrel. So, but if your question is going forward from here, if the price remains at $60 a barrel as it is today or thereabouts, and I'm not going into the Indian basket or Brent, etc., I'm not going into that, then can you legitimately expect prices of petrol and diesel to be moderated by the oil marketing companies in keeping with the global price? To which my answer would be yes. In a deregulated sector, you can expect them to accordingly adjust the market retail price.
All right, then moving on.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.